Hi guys, it's been a little while since I sat in front of the camera. Today I thought I would do a depth year update for February since we are nearly at the end of February. I know it's a short month in terms of the calendar days, but it just feels like it's flown really quickly as well. There's a couple of, I suppose, life updates that I'll go through, and then I'll go through some of the things that I focused on in February. All in all, I feel like this month was a bit of a low-key one for me. Now, I know they can't be all high energy and, you know, ticking everything off your list, but this one felt very sort of low-key and just sort of like slow and steady progress and just, you know, I suppose more like internal work and things like that. So that's how I feel that February sort of felt for me. The first life update is that I am now trialing a 9-day fortnight at work. I recently requested that I, through like sort of flexible work arrangements, if I could trial one, and they agreed to it. So as at filming, I've had one Friday off, and the idea is that I have every alternate Friday off. In order to do that, I haven't sort of cut my my hours down necessarily. It just means that I start work an hour earlier most days, and then you know, taper off towards the very end of the fortnight, and then just have the Friday off. So the reason I requested that was because I wanted to have some more time to dedicate to my projects, like this, the YouTube project, for example, just personal projects, personal time, and also, you know, like if things pop up, so like life admin tasks and things like that. Plus also my dad has been sick recently, so it's also allowed me the time to sort of like go and visit my parents and things as well. So both practical and personal and all that sort of thing. So I'm really happy with that. But what that has meant is that I used to film in the mornings. After my husband left for work, there was around an hour that I'd have in the mornings where I'd have the house to myself, and I was able to film a lot of this stuff. So I don't have that anymore. We tend to leave roughly around the same time now. So that has been one sort of, I guess, downside to getting this day to myself. On the plus side, it gives me a whole day if I, you know, want to go to the beach or want to really dedicate some time to a project. And I know and because I've only experienced one Friday off, I'm sure I'll sort of get into the groove as it goes along. I suppose as well, I'm noticing that I really don't get a lot of time to myself, like as in to be by myself in the house, because we do have like an apartment, so I can't sort of really escape into a backyard like a sort of a private space. And my husband and I keep pretty much the same hours, and we're both really homebodies, so I'm finding it a bit challenging to sort of sit down and be able to speak to the camera without having to, I guess, feel a little bit silly with him overhearing, or because I guess that's more about me and like my personal how I feel about, like, I don't know, getting all this sort of stuff out. And also he'd have to creep around the house, like, because it's quite open plan, so it'd be really hard for him to, you know, like just sit there and be quiet for like ages while I film. To that end, I'm sort of working on not starting and stopping filming a lot, just getting it out there, and just trying not to say as much, but also trying to gather my thoughts and being very present when I film one of these, so I don't need to take a lot of shots, so I can basically sit down and film. I'm filming this in the afternoon. My husband isn't home yet. He's working back a little bit, so that's one of the reasons why I just thought it was an excellent opportunity to sit down and to just get this out there, basically. So that's the first update. The second update is that I don't think I've talked about this in my depth here so far, but we've currently got a couple of financial goals that we're working towards, and one of them is paying off a car that we recently purchased. And I've been using these are debt-free charts. You can find them on debtfreecharts.com. This is not sponsored. It's just something that we've been using, and you can see these a lot on the the personal finance community here on YouTube. But we're basically down to our last $5,000 in terms of discharging the car loan, so we're super excited about that, and I can't wait to be done with that so that we are moving on to the next financial goal. And then after that we get to start really, I guess, putting the cash away for a sort of like a 5 years plan, which is basically to sort of like move out of the metropolitan area and to somewhere which has, you know, like nature and space and a backyard and things. So really excited about that. So that's another update as well that I just thought I'd quickly mention here, even though I don't think finance is something that I've really been talking about in my last videos. Another life update is that it has stopped being so hot. We are at the end of February, and I'm really hoping that that's the end of the heat waves. So it's just started to sort of cool down. You can sort of feel the mornings being a little bit cool, and maybe the breeze of like afternoon, evening cooling down slightly, and it's sort of really I guess motivated me to get outside. I used one of the very first Friday I had off. We ended up going to the beach, and it was really lovely, and it made me realize how much I missed being outside, and some of those reasons, I guess, why I've cooped myself up inside is, you know, the heat waves. It's been, you know, 40 or over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's disgusting to go outside. And there's also the practical reason of you know, the fact we live in an apartment, so we don't really have a private outdoor space, so that's something that I'm always very mindful of. But I suppose I just need to sort of do what I can and make sure to just get outside. We have like river walks nearby, and areas, you know, like public spaces, parks, things like that, and, you know, to use the days that I have off on the weekend to just, even if I spend like an hour or two outside, or maybe in the garden, I just need to make sure that I get outside more often, because I really noticed it, how much I've actually missed it, and how much of a difference it has made, I think, in terms of my mood. So that's something I'm going to be like striving to do as well. There is a Swedish saying, which is basically, there is no bad weather, only bad clothing, and that's one that I really want to adhere to for the rest of the year, and just really like keep in the forefront of my mind, and sort of stop using the weather as an excuse not to do something. So long as there's no, like, well, we're not really going to get blizzards here in Sydney, but you know, like within reason, you know, if there's a cyclone, if there's a tornado, if there's a blizzard, don't go outside. But in any other case, then really, you know, it's your clothing choice, really, I think, at that point. So that's something that I'm going to keep in mind as well. Something that I am super excited about is that I have found a pagan group that is actually near me. So I am so excited. I'm not really in like the center of Sydney, so you find a lot of people that you can find them sort of like, you know, at opposite ends of you know, the city, which is, you know, which can be about 2-3 hours away when you factor in traffic and stuff. So I actually don't know anyone who's like pagan, witchy, new agey, even spiritual. I don't know any of those people in real life, so I'm super excited to find out that there's like a pagan group near me. I missed the February catch-up because they tend to do monthly meetups, so I missed the February one, so I'm going to be attending the March one. These aren't like full moon or moon cycle rituals. They're not like a circle. They're just basically a gathering of like-minded people. So I'm really excited to attend that, and that's happening in, I think, mid-March. So I'm really excited for that. And to sort of like meet others in the area, and I guess through them find out a little bit more about if there are other communities or groups in the area, and I guess really start to meet people in real life who are interested in some of the same things and want to talk about the same topics that I want to, since my group of friends really are not into any of this. So I'm super excited for that one too. I didn't actually do any full moon rituals or moon related rituals this month. I feel like, especially for the last week or two, I feel like I guess, I don't know, work and just life has really been like kicking my ass, and I've just sort of felt a little bit like, a little bit down, a little bit grumpy, a little bit like tired, and just, I haven't really been, I guess, not motivated, but yeah, I haven't really done a whole lot in the last week or two. It's only been relatively recently, and I think it has something to do with making sure I get out and actually move my body and like be in nature a little bit. Yeah, so I haven't done that, but I do have plans to do something for the new moon in March. And I guess like the final life update, which is not really a surprise, is that autumn is on the way, and I am so excited about it. I've never really been a like autumn winter person historically. Like you know, if you'd interviewed me like, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, I would have told you summer all the way, but I think I'm really starting to change my mindset about it, and especially where I'm living at the moment, it is just so hot that you just sort of want to hide away and sort of almost hibernate or shut down in summer. So I'm so excited about like cool temperate weather and being able to like get outside and just like do things, even like little house projects and stuff that, you know, you just have zero motivation to do when it's like super hot. So I'm like so excited about autumn coming up. So it'll be interesting to see if the vibe about the Mabon festival is, or Sabbath, is a little bit different compared to the Lunar one that I didn't feel a huge connection to. So I'm really interested to find out if I feel a bit more connected to this Sabbath that's coming up as well. In terms of things that I focused on this month, it was, I suppose, mostly books. And I also ended up discovering that even though you're not necessarily purchasing books, there's such a thing as putting too many on your to read list, and they were sort of coming at me from all directions. So I had the library tell me some books that were on reserve, they were available, so there was that. I also discovered the Libby app, which allows you to borrow audiobooks and ebooks through your library as well. And I also think I underestimated how long it takes to study a book as well. It's been a while since I actually studied at university or at school, and you know, I think depending on the type of book it is, of course, and how in-depth you are studying it, maybe like a month per book is maybe a little bit too sort of rushed and too soon. Or at least I'm finding that with the Paganism book that was on my to-read list, especially because it's got a lot of activities and a lot of like journaling and prompts, and I am trying to complete all of them. I have finished reading that book, but there are a couple of visualizations and exercises that I've yet to do because they sort of rely on me being alone in the house, and as I discussed previously, that is something that I'm finding very difficult at the moment. It may have to be me in the car or something, like in a car, like in a parked space, not me on the road driving. So yeah, so that's something that I've noticed. So I've decided that, you know, it doesn't necessarily need to be a book a month. I'm going to slow it down or speed it up as necessary. But yeah, so I've nearly finished the Paganism book, so I've given myself permission to move on. This is so the Lunar Abundance book is what I'm going to be reading next. I have already sort of started it. And this book sort of kicks off, it obviously has an introduction, but it kicks off in like the new moon phase. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of like read it, digest it, and then go and read them as the moon phases pop up. So I'm starting from the March new moon. So I'm going to be sort of like going through and doing some of the recommendations and just sort of seeing what comes up and seeing how this particular moon practice, you know, what works for me, what maybe doesn't work for me, and yeah, all of that sort of thing. So I'm super excited for that. This book wasn't on my New Age, spirituality, witchy reading list, but it was one that I came across. Someone recommended it on YouTube, so I requested the library purchase it because you can make those recommendations, and the library did. So I was really excited about that, and I was really surprised they did it so quickly. I wasn't expecting to read this for months, so this is what I'm going to mention because it ties in with I guess how my depth year is going, and other people may be interested in it as well. It's sort of related in that way. So this book that I read from the library is called The Nature Fix, and it is by Florence Williams, and the subtitle says, "Nature makes us happier, healthier, and more creative." Now, if you were looking for a book which is spiritual, new agey, this is not really your book. This book is more of a scientific study. This lady Florence, she writes from her own perspective and using her own life as an example, but she also goes around different places on the planet and she participates in studies. So for example, she will go to the forests of Japan where they have a concept called forest bathing, which is not bathing in a stream but like soaking it in sort of thing, the feel of the forest. She goes and she will participate in studies where they measure things like heart rate and stress levels and things of that nature. So what's going on in her body. So it is not a spiritual new agey type of book, but nevertheless I found it really interesting. And I suppose if you wanted to know the scientific reasons why or what happens to our body when we spend time in nature, then this book is sort of for you. And it talks about various things. So there's this, and she discusses various studies on, say, nature and depression, nature and stress levels, nature and ADHD, especially in kids, and things like that. So I found it quite interesting, but it is a bit of a dense read. Florence is definitely not an investigative journalist, but she is a researcher and she is heavy on the detail and heavy on the science. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, go ahead. I do recommend it. It's not like a light-hearted, intuitive sort of vibe. She doesn't sort of sit there and tell her own autobiography just in terms of how she felt about nature in terms of personal gnosis. It's very much science-based. So that was actually a really interesting read, and I suppose that also influenced me into getting out in nature. I've only gone for it a couple of long walks and once to the beach, so it's not like I've suddenly turned into a nature spirit or something, but it's definitely I guess reminded me about the benefits of going outside and that I really just need to do it. And also it talks about obviously other cultures and how they view being out in nature. Now, of course, it definitely talks about it talks about Japan, it talks about Korea, it talks about different concepts, for example, in Finland and things like that. So it does look at different areas of the planet, which is really interesting to see sort of what they've said and thought about getting out in nature, basically. So yeah, I sort of really enjoyed that, and that was an unexpected read. Now, another book which I was really keen to see the library had, because it's rare that the library has new agey stuff, but I suppose this is more of a religious flavour, and it was touched on in the Paganism book that I was reading very briefly. And also I'm a member of the Depth Year Facebook group, and so this Facebook group has mentioned Marie Kondo and the life-changing magic of tidying up, and a number of people's depth years is about releasing things and letting go of things that no longer spark joy, or they want to live lighter and things like that. I have actually read Marie Kondo's book, and I have actually followed her process basically, but that is not really my point here. My point is that in discussing Marie Kondo's life, I believe it's been brought up that she was actually at one time a shrine maiden. So at her Shinto temple, she actually served as a shrine maiden there for a number of years. And so people had, I guess, highlighted that potentially her views around possessions and the fact that they all contain like a spirit is very much coming from the Shinto religion. And that of animism, that everything like has an essence, has a spirit, that sort of vibe. So that made me really interested in finding out more about the Shinto religion. And the library actually like does have a book on the Shinto religion, which I was kind of surprised about. This is just one of those religions of the world, and the topic being the Shinto religion. And so I thought I'd just get that. Is it one of the top 10 books on the Shinto religion? I have no idea. I was just really keen to pick it up and know that that wasn't going to be a book that I needed to purchase or somehow get my hands on. So I'm very interested to read this. In terms of my other I guess practices, I'm still drawing a tarot card a day, and I'm still continuing to log like my moods and my menstrual cycle, and use the planner, and nothing too much has changed there. I've been taking a lot of notes as I've been reading the Paganism book, and now I'll be switching to the Lunar Abundance book, so I'll be taking a lot of notes and journaling about that. But nothing fundamentally has changed about the structure of my planner, so I will probably leave off sort of updating how I'm using it at the moment, because I'm pretty satisfied with how it's going at the moment. So I guess that's probably it. I think I will stop rambling here, and I hope you found something interesting and got something out of my Depth Year February update, and I will see you in the next video. Bye everyone!